Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk Family Life, where we have conversations that are real and we are not afraid to address questions and issues that may come up during our conversations. We always bring to you an esteemed panel, and today we have two gentlemen who are seasoned, who have who have some years of experience under their lives, as well as have counseled couples as they go through the period of courtship and dating prior to marriage. So again, reach out to your loved ones, invite them to come along and have this conversation with us as we begin um, the conversation here today. Our topic for this evening is romantic relationships, courting, and dating. This Real Talk is brought to you by a team of Caribbean evangelical ministers who are all committed in their quest to help our families thrive, to strengthen our families, to build resilience in our families and teach families how to be resilient and raise their children to be resilient as well. I am Patricia Neff. I am a host for this evening, and I look forward to this riveting conversation. So we are getting ready to begin, and I'm going to ask the panelists, please, to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about who they are and what they bring to the table, and then we will begin the discussion. Pastor Francis, would you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Good evening to the moderator, Dr. Neff. Good evening to my fellow panelists, Pastor Griffith, and to those listening and viewing us on this social media platform. I am Reverend John Francis, the senior pastor of the People's United Fellowship. When called upon to speak in a public forum, I take it very seriously, for whatever I say could help or could hurt people. So I pray this evening that our contribution, I didn't say my contribution, our contribution will help someone in some way or the other. The last time I sat on the panel, I used as my preamble the two young lovers. This evening, I want to use as my preamble some of the lyrics of Percy Sledge's song, Take Time to Know Her. This is what Percy says. I found a woman I felt I truly loved. She was everything I ever been dreaming of, but she was bad. I didn't know it. Her pretty smile never did show it. All I knew is what I could see, and I knew I wanted her for me. I took her home to Mama. Mama wanted to see my future bride. Well, she looked at us both and she called me to her side. She said, son, take time to know her. It is not an overnight thing. Take time to know her. Please don't rush into this thing. Dr. Neff, to me, courtship should not be limited to just getting to know each other. It should also be a time for setting goals and putting things in place to achieve those goals so that the relationship will benefit should the two persons choose to marry each other. We should never enter into marriage like headless chicken. That's my opening comment.
Thank you, Pastor Francis. Pastor Griffith, it's your turn.
Hello, good evening. I'm quite certain that Brother Francis, Pastor Francis spoke for me, and in particular, I would want to mention that song. So I guess smart minds think alike. I wouldn't have said the whole thing, but I would have referred to it. But I'm glad to be here this evening. I am from the Caribbean Evangelistic Fellowship, over 40 something years of being there. So most of my entire Christian life, I've not gone to other churches. I've consistently been in one church. Certainly we are not perfect, but I guess that speaks to my commitment to the faith. So wherever I can be of use, I'm always saying yes, in spite of the sacrifices. So I'm trusting, as Brother Francis says this evening, that I'll be able to say something that would in fact benefit somebody.
Thank you, Pastor Griffith. So to the audience, I just want to let you know what our objectives are for today and to encourage you, if you have questions, please do not hesitate to put them in the chat. For those of you who are listening on YouTube, again, put your questions in the chat. We will have someone monitoring it, and we will certainly address those questions as well. But here are our objectives for today. Again, the topic is romantic relationships, courtship, and dating. So it is our hope that the audience will understand the reason or reasons for courtship and dating. It is also a hope that the audience will understand the importance of the couple aligning their goals and values during the courtship period, which means there are some work to be done during that period. And our third objective is that the audience will understand the importance of articulating expectations and building agreements to deal with the conflicts in the marriage. So we are ready to begin. Panelists, our first question today is, the practice of courtship is not mentioned in the Bible. Could it be that this 200-year-old practice is responsible for the high divorce rate in our Western world? I'll start with Pastor Griffith.
Well, the question suggests that there's a possibility that there could be something wrong with the practice or how we are practicing courtship or dating. But I have come to realize, first of all, that dating and courting seems to mean so many different things to so many different people. And I sought to reach out to a couple of people to find out what were their thoughts. And one sister responded to me, and she said to me, before saying the whole thing, is like, after up to a maximum of 16 years, a person being living in an unmarried state employed with some person. And she wanted to know whether it was reasonable, right? Or what should happen. Should this person become a Christian? Should people be telling them or expecting them to end the relationship? Now, I don't know how she come to jump to that stage, right? But I thought, though, that what she was in fact highlighting was the tendency of complications that can come from the idea of dating. That is where there is not a measure of commitment attached to it. And let me say up front that I think that when you are dating / courting, the ultimate goal should really be to settle down. And settle down simply means marry, and even the fancy fairy tale, live happily ever after. That's the concept that we have. But let's go back to the idea of, I mentioned last time I was here something about the Victorian period. What I will do here is ask you to step back in history before the 1960s, all right, 1940s. I suggest that most marriages at that time were arranged. That is, you had to go home at daddy and let daddy know you put your cards on the table. Or daddy, parents will come out and pick and choose a match for the young ones. And those were marriages that were arranged and was almost like business ventures, and really had little or nothing to do with love and that sort of thing, right? And I suggest that the the idea of courtship. Courtship was almost something that was introduced like during the time when we become more liberal society. We talk about giving women more rights, etc. And therefore courting was something that courting was now a public affair. So you see me walking on the road with my girlfriend, you know what I mean? We might do things, whatever. But there also came an extreme situation, which seemed to my mind to have come out of courtship itself. Whereas courtship was a in-between situation. That is, you get involved in outside courting, you go out with the person, you get the romantic relationship, the romantic feeling, etc. You are more involved in it. But still, the idea is you're planning for commitment. On the other hand, now there seems to be something that come out of that, and that seems to be dating, which means that and they call different terms for it. It's also public courtship, and it goes with phrases like going out together, being with someone, seeing each other, just friends, hooking up, and the list goes on forever. All right? So I would say that, yes, the courtship that we have today, because people are not able to distinguish between the dating and the courtship, where you are actually getting to know the person. I think that is that misunderstanding that is responsible for the divorces and the problems that we have. I want to pause a little bit on that right there.
Okay. Pastor Francis, what are your thoughts?
Firstly, let me just set the tone for the question by defining dating and courting, as Brother Griffith said, because I believe there is a difference between the two. Dating is a broad term that can mean many things, including casual meetings, hooking up, or being in a long-term relationship. And it is not necessarily always done to pursue marriage. Courtship is more serious and traditional than dating. It involves getting to know your partner with the expectation that marriage is the end goal. Courtship allows for two persons to truly get to know each other without the pressure of physical intimacy clouding the view. Now, to answer the question, I say certainly not. And that is in relation to the 200 years, is it responsible for the high rate of divorce? I say no. Even though, and that is to me, my own opinion, the practice of courtship may not be mentioned in the Bible, to me, the principle of courtship is established. And all these are my views. What Joseph and Mary did, and when I say Joseph, not Pastor Griffith, because I think your name Joseph. Your wife named Mary? Okay.
No, Jennifer.
What Joseph and Mary did before they were married to each other, they established the principle of courtship. I would want to say that the 200-year-old practice is not responsible for the high rate of divorce. But to me, it is the lack of preparation on the part of the couples, such as poor communication, unresolved hurts from the past, unrealistic expectations may be the cause for the high rate of divorce. If what is desired in a marriage is not communicated and people begin to spring surprises and make selfish demands on each other during the marriage, then problems can arise. Having said this, there are things that should be made known and discussed during courtship. I rest here.
If I may come back in quickly there,
Yes, please do.
Madam Moderator, what we need to agree on is that we are really building relationships. And the idea of courtship must have the idea of romantic attraction, right? And so it is an integral part. Romantic attraction is an integral part of courtship. But I want people to understand that it does not necessarily focus or mean that sex has to be involved. It is about building a foundation for lasting relationships. Therefore, the concept of dating as we know it can in fact be misleading. I'll just add one final thing here. I want us to understand that birds does court. And some of us are fortunate to watch them. But I want to suggest to you that as we look at the subject, just look at the birds. Watch how they operate, how they court, how they build their nests, how they lay eggs, how they sit on them, how they feed them, how they care them. And that the idea is even the birds think about preparing for family. And I think that's a form of marriage. I wish that when we done it this evening, that we'd be better off than the birds. I pause.
So we're looking at courtship and dating. And as Pastor Francis referred back to the origins of courtship, and it's in my research, it dates all the way back to the 1500s, and that it is a social tradition where a man and woman who are, Pastor Griffith said, who are attracted to each other, who are considering marriage, would engage in. What's unique about courtship is, and that's very different than dating, is that couples who are courting were never left alone.
That's true.
The date.
That is true.
And there was always a chaperone who accompanied them. And the reason for that was because of that physical attraction, to prohibit or minimize physical contact of any kind during that courtship period, so that the couple would remain pure until marriage. Interestingly, Pastor Griffith, you referred to dating as, again, it's a social tradition, practice, that does not necessarily lead to marriage, whereas courtship does. And even though the word courtship itself does not appear in the Bible, as Reverend Francis says, when we think of Mary and Joseph, they will be betrothed, and usually it's being betrothed or engaged is again a social tradition that occurs just before marriage. So it's kind of takes it a little further. The commitment is stronger. You are promised to each other. But I think one of you also, I think it was Pastor Griffith, mentioned that the idea of arranged marriages, which is another tradition that dates back to many, many decades, centuries ago. And I was in preparing, I was looking at arranged marriages. I didn't have the time to see what happens in the Caribbean, but I know that in America, when we look at the divorce rate, we find that the divorce rate for American couples are 40 to 50%. Whereas for couples who live in America, who got married through arranged marriages, because it occurs here too, depending on where the families came from, that the divorce rate is only 4%. So there seems to be still a strong consideration and support for arranged marriages, because the people arranging the marriages, whether it's someone who's hired to matchmake, or whether it's the parents themselves or the families who make those decisions, the idea of being in an arranged marriage is still being honored when it does occur. And it apparently does building some supporting structures for that marriage so that they don't easily lead to divorce. All right, let's go. Let's see if there's anyone in the chat. All right. No questions in the chat as well, so we'll keep moving along. And I want to encourage you, put your questions in the chat so we can address them. Now, one thing I want to ask you, gentlemen, as a follow-up to this first question, during the courtship period, since we're talking about it leading to marriage, do you think that's a time for couples to think about articulating what their expectations are, articulating how they plan to handle or address conflicts and those kinds of situations in marriage? Do you think that's a time for them to address those things, or maybe later on, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's about the whole idea is building the foundation. We talk about compatibility. It's a big word I don't like so much, but you want to make sure that the pieces can fit together. So we need to declare a hand. We need to be honest with ourselves and with each other. Otherwise, we in for trouble. You know what I mean? So yes, we should know where we are going. And I said to the lady earlier that I referred to was, ma'am, even because she spoke about unequally yoked, and I was trying to explain to her that unequally yoked doesn't only refer to like if a person is a Christian and a sinner. It refers to people who are not going in the same direction, who don't have the same values, who don't have the same vision, and the vision is not even complementary, but they are diverse. So yes, it is important that we need to declare what we expect, what our plans are, what our ambitions are, and what we're bringing to the table. Compatibility is the issue, yes.
Okay.
Yes. If I should,
Go ahead.
this, Dr. Neff, it is both healthy and reasonable to have expectations. And here are some of the expectations. The expectation of respect. I expect you to respect me, and I should. The expectation of affection. It is just, we are not unique. So after we get married, the expectation of intimacy.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
Intimacy and time, spend time together, building the relationship. Being in a healthy relationship means you are getting your needs met by a person you love and trust, and you are meeting their needs. If a wife never told her husband that she expects affection and she expects him to spend time with her, how can they create a foundation of what is needed in the relationship? Expectations must be shared so that both parties, and this is why it's important, could agree upon it and avoid unnecessary conflicts and build a win-win solution. There must be times of giving and receiving. No one person should have it his or her way all the time. The relationship cannot flourish in such a soil. But to meet needs, you must first know what those needs are. And secondly, you must have what it takes to meet the need.
I was about to ask, so what if you don't have what it takes? But I'm going to leave that, let it hang for a minute. I'm going to go to the second question. If you recommend a period of courtship for couples who decide on marriage, what are the key factors that young lovers should focus on during this period of relationship? What are the key factors?
Who's next?
No, I want to go back to where Brother Francis started.
Okay.
Take time to know her. I mean, I do not know who can ever contradict that song. Again, forevermore, Wayne, take time to know her. again, I would seek to, and I believe strongly, like I said, love is a relationship. It is not, hold me for it. It is not a feeling. I don't care. Find some other word. Invent a new word. We do it every day. Love is not a feeling. Love is a relationship that has 5 pillars, and I can say all the time. Caring, sharing, understanding, trusting, respect. You can put them in any part of speech that you want, right? But the aim is to build that. And I'm saying that it takes time. The idea about overnight things, that he don't get nobody overnight. The man said the song, but didn't it take time to know the person. So the question really is if we should recommend a time. Now, I know that there are some people who court for 3, 4, 5 years. And we might ask, they might them ask why they're gonna offer, some might offer some good reasons. One of them more likely is that we ain't get the house finished. We might ask ourselves if they may start too quick. But who says that that is necessarily too quick? Because they're planning, they're saving, and they're working towards their goal. All right? But I discover the be thoughtful, that's the word, between that happened in the Bible. You met with the partner, the dory was exchanged, and they had, I would call it, let me call it in today's terms, a little drink, a little glass of wine to seal that commitment. Then the bride is left at daddy's house, and the bridegroom left and gone back at his father's house and prepare the chamber. But it took approximately 1 year. And after that, he go back to his wife. And the funny thing about it is that it is when he went back to his wife in the marriage, the first thing actually I understand happens is the guest was waiting, he go home and he go into the wife in the chamber. Not a discussion. But the point I'm raising here is I think the 1 year period when the man returns to his father's house and prepare the chamber might be a suggestion of a time you can use, 1 year. Matter of fact, some people actually believe that courtship should be approximately 1 year, but I can tell you 1, 2, 3 years because we are all different, right? But so I would suggest it takes time, and I would suggest that some people contend it is about a year is very reasonable. So I pause.
Francis?
Yes, let me just expose myself to you all just a little bit. Those who know me, they would know that I am not the one who believes in having a fixed and a rigid way of doing things. Sometimes it is not always taking what the doctor order for a general fever, but it's taking what is needed for the individual case. Not all the time. Well, I didn't know it at all. It's not at any time. One size does not fit all. Different persons may have different things they will need to pay special attention to during courtship. The courtship period should be used to build on the strengths of each other and give each other the time to work on the weaknesses. The intention should be to give the best self, give your best self to each other and not the leftover. A good relationship would be the one we work on to make it what it should be. And here are a few factors that will help in making it what it should be. I list them now. Keep checking on the health of the relationship, and that can be done through counseling, where the relationship can be viewed without bias. Secondly, always look for the red flags that may determine whether the relationship will be a safe and committed one. 3, take the time to build strong communication where habits are discovered and expectations are met, are shared. 4, develop love before intimacy. Remember, sex before marriage is not a measurable way to test love chemistry, because love should be built on trust, good communication, and commitment to lead to a secure, that leads to a secure marriage. And 4, the last one, 5, focus on courting one person and do not engage in several potential relationships at the same time. Let me take this time to also say that the foundation for marriage must be strong, for if there are cracks in the foundation, when pressure hits, the foundation will fall apart.
Go ahead, Pastor Griffith.
No, I just said not the foundation, the building will collapse.
Building.
The foundation building gone.
Right.
Thank you.
Whole house.
That's a pretty nice list, and is by no means exhaustive. But I want to go back to something that Pastor Griffith said, because when he said love is not a feeling, and I know there are many songs that would refute that, but I want to say that statement is accurate. However, we do feel love, right? Whereas love is not a feeling. We can't define it by a feeling. We do feel love. And when I think of love, I think of the 3 H's. That's my thing, right? Head, heart, and hands, right? Another way of looking at it for those intellectuals: cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. Cognitively, what goes on in the mind, your understanding of how you interpret. The affective, which is the feelings, the heart part of it, right? That's how you know that you are attracted to someone, because of the feelings, because of what happens in the heart. And the hands part is the physical expression of love when the time is right for that. So I don't want people to walk away thinking that love is devoid of feelings, but that while it's not defined by the feelings, it definitely is a component of love. Because if the feelings, if the affective isn't there, well, then a big part, the passion and the intimacy and all that is tied up in the affective component. So we need to have
romantic attraction. Romantic attraction is subject.
Absolutely, yes. All right. So in chat, Pastor Henry stated, taking time to know her is equally important as taking time to know him. And he talks about her, but don't forget that we need to also know him. His question is, how do you get to know a psychopath or a physiopath who has learned the skill of deception? How do you get to that person?
Life by itself is a risk. And somebody says, I can't say it's a good, but if you fool me once, then fool me twice or like that, then shame on me or something. I ain't got it right, right?
Mhm.
There's some things that our inner intuition tells us. There's some things that we learn by experience. You get burned, but you don't get burned again. So most of us might not be skillful enough to recognize deception, but I would pray that as we experience it, that we learn from it. And I would only say that anytime a man can stand up on a nail and feel the pain going through his foot and don't move or shift himself, something wrong with him. So in other words, I can't blame you for the man who is skillful, but you must tell me what you feel and respond to what you feel. I don't know if I answer that question, but that's what you think.
Dr. Neff, I don't even think the psychologist or whoever could answer that question accurately. I sit in my home sometimes and my wife and I, we share and we discuss things. And I have asked the question in funerals, in weddings, and all those forums that I may be involved in. And I asked the question, how does one feel when he kills multiple people and he sits down and watch the evening news, eating a box of chicken and chips, and he sees a woman he has now made a widow, children he has now made orphans, whatever the case is, and he does it repeatedly without feeling, as we will say in local parlance, a how, so to speak. Psychologists cannot answer. So life on earth, we pray for the best, we hope for the best, but there are things we just cannot answer. I don't know how they feel. I wouldn't try to answer that, to put myself in the head, because it's a question that baffles us.
Okay. We're going to move on to question number 3. We just lost Pastor Griffith. Pastor Henry, could you please reach out to Pastor Griffith? We just lost his feed.
Yeah, I'll be in touch. You go ahead, Dr. Neff. I'll see
All
what
right.
I can. Yeah, I'll be in touch.
This third question, let me give the kind of preamble to it, and then I'll ask the question. During courtship, many couples realize that there are major unresolved issues in the relationship, but marriage still occurs. After the young woman discovers that the young man is a striker or womanizer, but the relationship continues, hoping that marriage will bring change. Recently, on the internet, there's a story that has been blowing up the internet. It has gone viral, I mean, all over the world. This young woman was talking about who she married, and she used some words, but she was describing this person she married, who turns out to be a psychopath. He lies, very compulsive, psychopathic liar, and has deceived many women, has gone through the whole courtship dating situation, has deceived many women, and just is a psychopathic type of person. And she became aware of a lot of his behaviors before they got married, but she still proceeded to marry him, hoping that he would change after they got married. So here is the question. What is it that contributes to this thinking that marriage will change this person, or I can bring about that change when we get married? And how would you re-educate young lovers to not engage in that type of thinking?
Well, I cannot say I'm waiting on Brother Griffith. He is not there. He left me all by myself. So let me do what I could do until he comes back on. May I say that some of the things that shape our view of marriage were not really bad. Not everything were bad. For example, many will agree that we have heard marriage is forever, but that was not meant to be bad, because the scripture tells us that it is a lasting covenant ordained by God. So sometimes it is those things that keeps us, can I say, in bondage. When we should move, we stay, because we were told that. We rest that there a little while because I'm going to develop on that in a little while. What causes some of those things, marriage to fall apart, to me is people were not mature, the maturity level of the couples involved, unresolved hurts, as I have said, traumas, and lack of the expression or expressing the expectation. Therefore, in our bid to re-educate young couples, no, sorry, I take it back, couples, they must be willing to go through a series of individual counsel to assist in the dealing with any hurts and emotional upsets in their life. Once we can develop strong and emotionally intelligent individuals, there is always the hope for stronger and more sustainable marriage. Here is a food for thought. If one chooses to do the wrong thing, and I use my word carefully, repeatedly during courtship and refuses to change, who told you that he will change after you get married?
Mhm.
If he hits on you and cheats during courtship, when he has not yet become your wedded husband, and let me add to it too, wedded wife, because some wife beat up on the husband. Wedded wife, who told you that they will change when they will become husband or wife? If he or she is capable of hitting on you without the ring on your finger, they are capable of killing you if you choose to marry them. So I said to you, I suggest very strongly, when you see these things that these people, they will not change, I suggest run for your life. Run for your life. As much as you may feel that you love him or her, let us just put it in bracket, the individual, he or she is not, and I'm using Maracas here, the B, as my focal point. He or she is not the last fish in the sea. May I advise you, don't enter the waters of marriage if the courtship is murky. And don't try to swim where red flags are posted. Suffer the temporal hurts by walking away rather than entering into a relationship where the rest of your life will be misery and pain. Brother Griffith is not here. So
No,
let me
he's
say
not.
that you have said, I pause.
You pause. Okay, let me add Pastor Henry to us. Oh, he's on the phone. Um,
Pastor Griffith is they have an electricity problem.
oh, okay.
Yes. So let me could I add then to Pastor Francis' statement?
Yes.
Because courtship, I think what happens, let me put on the flip side, is that courtship, many a times the couple or one person in the couple may be trying to bring the other person around. So this is how I feel about this matter. This is how I see things. And I need you to measure to my way of life and my understanding of things. And if it can't work, well, you go your way, you go my way. And I think that many a times we can miss good relationships and healthy relationships by taking that particular attitude. So that I'm not saying what Pastor Francis is saying is incorrect. If you see the signs of somebody being psychologically imbalanced, run for your life because they are going to kill you. But if you if it's a matter of agreeing on certain issues, how things should be done in the relationship, and you have to pull back yourself at times and ask yourself, am I doing what to this person what I would not want this person to do to me? And oftentimes that happens with individuals in relationships. They're not willing to get to understand the person's way of life as much as they are trying to get the other person to understand them. And that goes into background. Sometimes we marry into families, and we go through the courtship, and we do not take time to understand the background, the sort of a family relationship that the person is coming from. I may have mentioned this on the program, but here it is. This couple, they are married now, but they never took the time to realize that the husband that you are getting married to, that his father has been a womanizer all his life. You have brothers and sisters that you don't know anything about, and you marry into that family expecting the guy to be a holy Catholic son of God. And it does not happen because he has been brought up in that environment, is what he has been taught. And you can't expect now to make him by exchanging vows to get him to think that leaving all other and cleaving unto you mean the same thing as what you mean. Right. So I think that's my contribution on that particular question. And you have to look at yourself also and where you are coming from to make sure that you're not trying to play God over the other person that you're in the relationship with.
Okay, Dr. Nessa, let me just come in here and
Certainly.
I quite agree that there are things that we have to sit down and discuss, but there are some major things that we just cannot do it. Because that person, because if you remember what I said repeatedly does not want to change with all that you do, then I suggest, because I prefer to have you alive than to wheel you out in a box from my church. So there are times we will have to run.
Oh.
We will
Yes, I quite agree. I'm saying if you are seeing the signs, yes, Pastor Francis, yes. I agree to that. If you are seeing the signs that this person, because in courtship, the same guy who grew up in the home where everybody is womanizing, during courtship, he can be the most dedicated person to the relationship. But it's a back of his head that this is how life is supposed to be. And one of the things that we don't realize is that we talk change to people, but I read a book some years ago, I forget the author's name now, the name slipped me, but you have to have the will to change. So for a lot of people, yes, it's right, but they do not have the will to change. And that is where the problem comes in the relationship.
Okay.
Okay, here's my thing on this, because there are some people who are chameleons, and I said people, I didn't say men or women, because it could be either, right? There are some people who are chameleons, and during the courtship period, they can be everything that you want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to answer the questions correctly. They know how to adapt to that situation. Especially if their desire is to marry you and hide the part of themselves that is what you're expecting the couple to see during that courtship period of time. So they appear to be kind and gentle and empathetic and understanding and submissive and all the right words, all the right behaviors. And then they get married. And within a week, I'll give them a week, within a week or month of being married, you're seeing an entirely different person, because the person who you thought was empathetic and kind and affectionate and all those things and the expectations that you laid out and that they said, oh yes, yes, absolutely, I'm in agreement with that, and yes, I can be this and I am that, and all of the things that they promised and they appeared to be demonstrating during the courtship period goes out the window. What do you say to a situation like that? What do you say to a couple like that? You know, I'm gonna leave it there. What do you say to that situation?
Some people believe that once I'm married to you, I own you. You
Mhm.
become my property.
Mhm.
So you don't have a life of your
Right.
own. I should
Right.
tell you when to stand, how to stand, when to walk, where to
Right.
walk. And I believe in counseling, but I want to be transparent and very honest with myself. There are times, and we have to know when. I don't know how we will determine, because as I've told you, I don't believe in the 1, 2, 3 ABC for everything. Sometimes it's not ABC, but BCA. So to get back my train of thoughts, there are people who just wouldn't change. Not that they don't want to change. I think at times there is a cutoff point, or else there are people who should have left who are dead now, because traditions and different things told them that they got to stay. So we have to know when to pack up and run. And as singing Francine says, she is now deceased. Some of the women put wheels on your heels and skate away. I will see you another time. But it must be determined with strong counsel. I am not the one to just say, okay, give up. Seek all the counseling, professional, godly, and all, but after all have been sought and nothing is coming to the place where we'll resolve our differences, and it's just everything going haywire, I suggest that maybe my words may be too strong, but do something else.
That's Henry. Go ahead.
I would suggest that during the courtship period, you do not just want to look at issues that you agree and disagree on. You want to look at the person's approach in dealing with issues. You want to look at the person's principle of resolving issues. And so if you are dealing with a person and you find this, I mean, if some of it is, some of it is gender based. There are some issues you're dealing with a woman and you think that it's settled, we are finished with it. And you could bet that it's going to come up 6 months from now. Right? And it's not because anything is wrong with the woman, or it's not because she didn't feel satisfied, but it's just the way women are. They just love to make sure that they have, the thing is resolved to their liking. I see Dr. Ness putting a face there.
Well, you made a statement. That's the way women are. I'll be careful with those kind of statements.
No. Let me say most women are. It's something.
Oh, it's
It's just like saying men that men are very to the point. They say it, they mean it, they finish with it. 6 words. The woman must speak 1,000 words about the same issue.
Okay. My whole thing about it, I should not be asking a question, but just for my own curiosity, I just want to know, when is a cutoff time? When should one?
You see, that's the point I'm making. There doesn't necessarily need to be a cutoff time. It's just that the two people need to understand issues as such, so that we have resolved this particular issue. But this person is going to bring it up again, and not with any intent to do harm. But they're going to, you could wear any pair of shoe that you want you could wear any color tie that you want with the shirt. It's your tie, it's your dress, and we agree on that.
I think what is happening here,
anytime you put on that tie that doesn't fit the shirt, you're gonna get talk again. So
I
you
think what is the
Well,
difference? Difference is Dr.
I'm going to
Ness.
move this along because we can go down a
Yes,
rabbit hole on
because
this one.
yes, yes.
Just so you know, if yellow doesn't go with let me find a straight orange. If you have a blue suit on and you want to wear a hot pink tie that doesn't go with the blue suit, if I love you, I will tell you. If I don't, then that's a question you may have to ask yourself, because I would not allow you to leave the house looking crazy
Exactly,
only
exactly.
because you don't want to hear that this doesn't go right. So
Exactly. And
I'm gonna
until
leave
the
that there.
and until the man comes to the point to understand that it's being done out of love, he would feel as though I am being suppressed, I am being oppressed. So that it's not just a matter of understanding and I'm just using this as an example,
Yeah,
but it's about understanding on principles
yeah,
and
Dr.
understanding
Ness,
each other on their feelings. And that is
yeah.
very important during the courtship period, where you get to know the person from that point of view.
And
And that is going to help you to realize whether this person is a sort of a domineering person. What I say goes, is this type of psychopathic person. If I can't get my way, I'm going to kill you. You get to find out all of that. You get to see, you're supposed to be able to try to figure out all of that in courtship.
and
And
along with that is learning how to, because if you determine that saying it in a certain way, it's perceived as though you're domineering and you want to have your own way, then you have to learn how to present the information in a way that doesn't put the
exactly,
person on the defensive, right? So you
exactly.
say it in a way so that they understand this is out of love. I'm concerned for you. I want you to look respectable when you know what I mean. It's how you address it. There's a comment in the chat or question: should courtship be extended to provide sufficient time for true behaviors to manifest? And how long should that courtship period be?
these are things I do not. I like to take the case individually. I am not the lawyer who just goes by the courthouse, like the funeral agency people, and they trying to get there. I'm not the lawyer who does that. I'm the lawyer who wants to know your case and takes it individually and works on it. So to say the case will determine what we pick up during the courtship. One might be for a year, one might be for 2 years, one may never lead into maturity, because let me hasten to say this. Courtship is not, it doesn't bound to end up in marriage. Courtship tells us at times these two persons are not meant for each other. So it gives you the opportunity to walk away with love, with no hostility and bitterness towards one another. So we must not sit down and think that because we are courting and things are not going as it should be, and we are seeing the red flags, the water of courtship is murky. Why should we want to swim in that water through marriage?
And I'm going to accept that.
Flag is there.
I'm going to accept that answer, Pastor Francis, so we can move on, because I do think it's all relative to the couple. Some things may manifest early and you address it and move on. Others, if it's going on and you may need that prolonged period of time for things to manifest itself organically. I like the comment that comes after that. I think praying to God for wisdom and discernment is vital in courtship. Too often we are so much in love, the feeling of love, that we forget to ask God for his opinion and to give us the ability to discern, the right spirit within the person we are courting. I am going to come back to your question, Keisha. I have not overlooked it. But I'm going to come to that because I think that's a really good question. And I'm going to attach that to the question number 4. Question number 4 is, how should a Christian couple conduct themselves in expressing intimacy, passion, and commitment during courtship? And the question that Keisha asked was, is it wise to go into a relationship without expectations? Should you just go into a relationship and expect things will fall into place, as it should? Is that wisdom to do that? And then how should they conduct themselves in expressing intimacy, passion, and commitment during courtship? Kind of tie it all together so we can wrap it up.
Yeah, okay, let me be short here. A well-known pastor, and we are talking about intimacy here, we'll talk about it. A well-known pastor once said, the word intimacy can be defined intimacy, see all of me. If that is true, the courtship period is not the time for the inspection and the sampling of each other's body parts. That's a no. Individuals who go into a courtship enter with a particular desire and motive, and that should be clean. If it's not clean and healthy, you may fall prey later down the road. So your intention, the courtship, your intention should be healthy, your intention should be pure, and you wait out your time until you get married, then intimacy should take place there. How should we, I'm just trying to skip some things here. How should we educate them? We educate them with what I call, that is those who come in with an unhealthy desire and those who feel they will fall prey to intimacy. I have something I call the 3 guards that you must put up. 1, guard your heart, for out of it flows the issues of life. 2, guard your body. It is too precious and expensive to give away cheaply. And 3, guard your future, for it determines how you will spend the rest of your life. If couples value each other, their bodies, and their commitment to marriage, then they are encouraged to keep themselves by paying attention to the places they visit, the things they look at, and what they listen to, because some of those things could cause you to fall prey. You can't be looking at sexual music and all that goes with it, and don't expect that I think you will not be tempted.
Yes, I think I'm back online again.
Yes, you are.
Leonard Paul said turn off my full power. So we try my backup systems. Look, in regards to Christian conduct, let's get to cut the chase. It's about our sexual behavior. That essentially the main thing. All right. And intimacy, I said earlier, doesn't necessarily translate into sexuality. It doesn't necessarily has to come down to sex. All right. So Christians need to understand that first of all. And Christians must understand, I think Christians understand that the basis of sex, or sex, is something that is reserved for marriage. However, we must understand that we are real people with real feelings, and we need to understand the power of human sexuality. We also need to understand what the environment does with you. Solitude, 2 people by themselves. The power of touch. We need to understand that solitude and touch and desires will create the perfect triangle for starting fires. And therefore we need to avoid them. Let's be honest to ourselves. That is exactly the reason why in the olden days you go home and there was somebody watchful over the courting period. Now, I also want to suggest that Webster defines being intimate as is marked by warm friendship, developing through long association. So it don't necessarily have to be sex. But quickly in Corinthians, Paul says, because of all these things I believe I'm saying, Paul said it is good for a man not to touch a woman. Now, Paul could have meant a lot of things, but I want to pause on that. I want to emphasize we need, in regards to our conduct in our relationships during our courtship, understand that touch is magic. Touch is deadly, right? That way Paul said, avoid the touch, because in so doing, avoid fornication, have your own wife. In that instance, what I think Paul was trying to say was that the poison is, in fact, is in the touch. And we didn't understand how powerful it really is. The other thing I would say quickly is that in Eden, Satan said Eve that she was not surely going to die. Yes, the word will tell us everybody is doing it and the boy ain't die. That is true. Nobody may not die. But the truth about it is that there's a lot of times when we wish we did dead. And very, very finally, remember Jesus' statement in Gethsemane, the flesh is willing, but the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Or vulnerability is in the flesh. Take responsibility for yourself. I pause.
Pastor Henry.
Dr. Neff, let me respond to Keisha's question
Yes.
with time. Have expectations. The more of your expectations you share in your courtship, the less problems you have with expectations in marriage. All right. So don't keep your expectations to yourself. Share those expectations. I would like to, as a woman, you think you would like to have 12 children, let the gentleman know that start to prepare yourself to work, because I want to have a big family. It's an expectation. You may end up with 1 or 2 or 3, you know, as the case may be, but share your expectations. On the note just now with this whole thing about sexuality, intimacy, and what have you. So that the 3 phases of love, intimacy, commitment, and passion.
Passion.
So the passion is the side that the intimacy is the friendship side. It is where you get to know each other. And so that during the courtship, you actually, that's the side you want to really be getting to know each other, becoming intimate with each other. The whole thing about sex, and my approach to it, and I tell young people that it is not just about the physical feelings. Control the thoughts in your mind and you will control the feelings. Oftentimes we think that people just, you know, you touch and you're going to explode and what have you and so on. So it's not what you see, it's how you interpret what you see in your mind. It's not how your touch is, how you interpret the touch in your mind, because people touch us all the time. And it doesn't mean that we interpret sexual feelings all the time. It's what is in our mind. And so if somebody touches us and they didn't have that intent of within their mind and you have it, it's your problem. It's not the other person's problem. So we need to guard our thoughts, guard the thoughts that are in our mind. And like Paul, whatever thing is lovely, whatever thing is right, whatever thing is holy, think about those things. And I think that is it for me, Doctor, on the question, Doctor.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I'd like you to get your closing remarks together. We've gone over by 10 minutes already. And I want to...
Okay, mine is very short, so let me give it.
Okay.
As I close, I want you to remember that every couple who is desirous of becoming man and wife should go through a period of courtship. We have already given the reasons for so doing, but I want to remind us that couples during the courtship period should seek professional and godly counseling. For being ignorant of something does not spare you of the consequences of your ignorance. Never enter into marriage thinking that you know it all. But take the advice of Percy Sledge's mother and take time to know her, take time to know him. And after that, if you feel it's clear that this person is worthy of becoming your husband or your wife, go for it. Just remember that marriage is a lifelong commitment. Thank you. Good night, and God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Francis. Pastor Griffin?
Ultimately, everybody wants to be happy. And courtship is a very important stage of our choosing a partner because it's about us getting to know that person. That is, we are weighing the odds that are against us. We do not stay in a relationship that we don't feel we be comfortable or happy in. You don't wait for 10 years to see if Michael can change. Because that ain't any game. Learn quick and move on because the longer they take, the older they get and nobody want it either. So let's face the facts. Move on. And remember that some people will change only temporary because they want something. Again, I say the ultimate objective is to be happy. So find time to court. And court means getting to know the person and to conclude whether you can live happy with that person as they are.
Now, one of the things that came out of this was that from very early was that love is not a feeling. But what I will say to you is that love is a choice. And the
Yes.
courtship period is that time for you to determine whether or not, or to make that choice. And that choice is yours and yours alone. And it's a period, as the gentleman mentioned, to get to know someone well enough to determine if this is a person you can spend the rest of your life with, even with their idiosyncrasies, because no one is perfect. But it's a choice that you must make. And if you make the choice to move forward to marriage, knowing that there are some red flags, as Pastor Francis keep referring to, red flags that would affect your let me go back to his 3 points that would affect your heart, your body, and your future. Then make that choice to, again, in Pastor Francis' words, to run away from it, to get away from that. Don't make that choice that is going to affect you for the rest of your life. But if it is a choice that you can live with and you are willing to work with that partner, and you've already discussed to the best of your ability during the courtship period what your expectations are, then you can move forward with that choice. But that decision is yours, and it's a decision that you can make even at the point of the ceremony. Right before you say I do, you can walk away from that situation if you feel in your heart, and if the Lord has granted you the ability to discern that this is not the right choice that you're making, regardless of what you spend on the ceremony. You can make that decision because it is your choice, and use that courtship period to help you make the right choice. This has been a great discussion this evening. We were talking about romantic relationships, courtship and dating, and the whole conversation about marriage and love continues throughout the month. This month, we have another week coming up. Next week, we are looking at preparation for marriage, part 1. Because we have 2 parts to that conversation. So we look forward to you joining us again. And at this point in time, I will hand it over to Pastor Henry, who would bring this to a conclusion.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We do appreciate you. And we, as Dr. Nev said, we look forward to seeing you next week. The conversation will continue since courtship is a preparation for marriage. And so we're assuming that you have made up your mind during courtship, we are going to get married. What next? What do we do after we have said yes to each other? We have committed, we've made a commitment for marriage. What next during that period before the actual day? So see you. Have a wonderful evening. Lord bless you. Pastor Samuel, have a good night.
Good night. Good night. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone. Wonderful program.
Good
I
night, sir.
enjoy the information. Thank you, Pastor Francis and Pastor Griffith and Dr. Neff. Thank you so much.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you all. Good. Have a good
God
night,
bless
everybody.
everybody.
Good
Good
night,
night.
everyone.
Good night.
And we can stop the stream.
Good night, everyone. Thank